The legal system can be a fortress of injustice. This wasn't the conclusion of a revolutionary, but a simple, cold truth articulated by a man who had seen it from the inside out. For a young lawyer in the Jim Crow South, the law was not a shield, but a weapon wielded against his own people. He looked at a system built to oppress and decided not to tear it down, but to master its every rule, its every precedent. This is the story of a man who learned to use the very tools of oppression to dismantle them, one case at a time. He was born Thurgood Marshall in 1908, but he quickly dropped the mouthful of a name, becoming Thurgood. From the very beginning, his life was a living lesson in American injustice. His father, a railroad porter, and his mother, a teacher, both taught him the quiet dignity of standing tall in a world that insisted he bend. His father would take him to the courthouse to watch the legal proceedings, and then they would debate the cases at the dinner table. It was here, in these fiery family debates, that a legal mind was forged. He wanted to go to the University of Maryland Law School. It was his home state. It was a good school, but they said no. The school was whites only. The irony was not lost on him. The law, a place of reason and logic, was the very mechanism of his exclusion. So he went to Howard University School of Law, an all-black institution where he was mentored by the brilliant Charles Hamilton Houston. Houston had a simple, audacious goal: to train a generation of legal warriors who would use the law to fight segregation. He called it social engineering. Houston taught Marshall that the courtroom was not just a place to argue. It was a place to educate. He taught him to tell a story that was so simple, so human, so undeniable, that no judge, no jury, no nation could ignore it. They traveled the South together, a legal SWAT team in a beat-up car, taking on cases of unequal pay for teachers and unfair access to schools. Marshall's life became a relentless series of quiet, dangerous showdowns. He would arrive in small towns, facing down armed sheriffs and hostile crowds, all to prove a single, simple point: that the law could be a force for good. This was not a glamorous life. It was a life of quiet desperation, of late nights, and the constant threat of violence. But in the fire of these early battles, Thurgood Marshall found his purpose. He wasn't just arguing cases, he was building a legacy, one brick at a time. Marshall's genius was in his humanity. The law is often cold, abstract, and technical, but Marshall knew that the most powerful legal arguments are built on simple, relatable human stories. His most famous case, Brown v. Board of Education, was not just about legal theory. It was about a little girl named Linda Brown, who had to walk a long, dangerous distance to her segregated school when a white school was just a few blocks away. Marshall's argument wasn't just a dry recitation of legal precedent. It was a philosophical plea. He argued that the very idea of separate but equal was a lie. He brought in psychologists who had conducted the doll test, showing that segregated children believed the white dolls were better, proving that segregation itself was a psychological and moral injury. He didn't just argue that the law was wrong. He argued that it was damaging to the human soul. This is a profound lesson for us today. In an age of information overload, where we're constantly bombarded with data and statistics, what truly moves people? It's not just the facts, it's the human story behind the facts. Whether you are trying to lead a team, inspire a movement, or simply convince a friend of your point of view, remember the lesson of Thurgood Marshall. Don't just argue with logic. Tell a story that a person can feel. Connect with their humanity. Because when you do that, your ideas become not just things to be understood, but things to be felt. And things that are felt are the things that truly change the world. The victory in Brown v. Board was a monumental achievement, but it was not an overnight miracle. It was the culmination of a decade of meticulous, slow, incremental work. Thurgood Marshall and the NAACP didn't start with desegregating schools. They started with smaller, more manageable cases. They chipped away at the edges of segregation. They focused on law schools and graduate schools, arguing that it was impossible to create an equal experience for a law student without access to a full, rich library and faculty. His strategy was like building a fortress, not with a single, sudden act, but with 1,000 small, precise bricks. Each case was a brick. Each victory, no matter how small, created a new precedent, a new foundation to build on. He understood that a system, no matter how entrenched, has a logical structure. And if you can find the small, logical flaws and exploit them, you can eventually cause the entire structure to crumble under its own weight. This approach teaches us a powerful lesson about change. We live in a world that often demands grand, sweeping gestures. We want the instant revolution, the immediate victory. But real, enduring change is almost always incremental. It's the patient work. It's the daily practice. It's the small, logical changes you make to your life, to your business, to your community. It's the understanding that you don't have to win every battle. You just have to keep moving forward, one meticulously placed step at a time. until the entire system has changed around you. Thurgood Marshall's life is a masterclass in this patient strategy. If this deep dive into the strategy of true change is resonating with you, please consider subscribing. It is the best way to make sure you don't miss our next cinematic journey into the minds that shaped our world. Years later, as a Supreme Court justice, Thurgood Marshall would often find himself in the minority. He saw the court, which had once been his triumph, begin to roll back the very progress he had worked so hard to achieve. He dissented, fiercely and eloquently, believing that the arc of the moral universe was long, and it bent towards justice, even if it sometimes bent away from it in his lifetime. But there is a final, powerful lesson in his life that speaks to his deepest philosophy. In 1961, he was sent to negotiate a settlement with a man named James Meredith, who was trying to integrate the University of Mississippi. Meredith, the student, was surrounded by a hostile mob. He was being shot at. He was alone. Marshall, the great legal strategist, told him to hold on, that justice was coming. This wasn't just a negotiation. It was a test of faith. Marshall knew that the law was only as strong as the people who were willing to stand for it. He didn't just believe in the law, he believed in the redemption of the American soul. He believed that the nation, flawed as it was, could be better. He was a deeply optimistic man who had every reason to be cynical. His life was a testament to the idea that even when the system fails, our faith in humanity, in justice, and in our ability to build a better world must not. And so, we come to the end of this journey. We've seen how a boy who was excluded from law school became the nation's first black Supreme Court justice. We've seen how he understood that the most powerful arguments aren't dry and technical, but are rooted in the human story. We've seen how he understood that true change is incremental, not sudden. And we've seen how he held onto an unshakable faith in the redemptive power of justice, even when the world around him was chaotic. His life was a testament to the idea that you don't have to burn down the building to rebuild it. You just have to find a way inside and use the tools already there, but use them for a new, more just purpose. He left us with a simple, yet powerful challenge. I wish that I could feel the good about my country that I could feel about the law. What is the disconnect in your own life? Where are the places you feel the law, the system, or the world is failing? And are you willing to do the hard, slow work of bringing about change? Not with anger, but with relentless, methodical purpose? The answers to these questions are not just about his legacy. They are about our own. If you're ready to find your own purpose in a chaotic world, if you're ready to become the kind of leader who inspires change with quiet wisdom, join our community. Hit the subscribe button now and let's continue this journey together. Next week, we'll turn our attention to the Stoic philosophy of Marcus Aurelius and the paradoxical power of embracing your own mortality. It's a journey that naturally follows this one, as we learn to find purpose not just in the fight, but in the quiet contemplation that precedes it.